we bought this little old Baptist church next to our house in Osage, near Osage. Yeah, we live 6 miles from town. They didn't want to sell me a house in town because they didn't want me to be on the streets of Osage very often. It was just ridiculous. My husband would say we owned a grocery store there, and he'd say, "Now listen," he ran a grocery store, and then he ended up owning it. He'd call and say, "Now listen, if you want anything from town, you tell me what you want, and I'll bring it home." And I thought, well, he's trying to keep me from driving back and forth to Osage 6 miles. And it finally occurred to me that he didn't want anybody to know who he was married to.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
yes, it was that serious for him. He knew immediately when he realized what kind of house they were willing to sell me.
Mhm.
We went after when we got the kids, we were going to move because the kids couldn't go to school there anymore. So I went looking for a house. And this guy, Daryl chose him. He showed me everything he had to sale and for sale in Osage. They were the most rundown, dilapidated pieces you would not want to live in. I finally said to him, "Is this the best houses? Are these the best houses you have for rent in Osage?" He says, "They're the best ones for you."
Wow.
Oh, that bluntly. And I said, "Oh, okay, thank you." So I went home and called my husband and said, "What do you think he meant?" He said, "I don't know what the SOB is talking about. I'll call somebody else." Well, the next day, that same guy called me and said, "I found a house for you." I said, "Good, where is it?" 6 miles from Osage. I said, 6 miles from Osage. I said, "What is it?" He said, "It's an old schoolhouse." And I thought, "Oh, okay, you fool." So I said, "I'll meet you out there." So I met him at this old schoolhouse, which was built as part of the Recovery Act in 1929.
Mhm.
And it had been turned into 3 stories, a basement, a first floor, and a second floor, by the people who had tried to buy it, who were buying it, and had fixed it up for a place that would hold at least 7 or 8 people. But the
Okay.
guy ran out of money, so he was going to sell it. So I called my husband. I said, "I found us a house. Where is it?" 6 miles from Osage. What is it? It's an old schoolhouse. "I'm not going to live in any GD old schoolhouse." I said, "Daryl, don't." He was just, "I'm not going to. I said, "Daryl, don't yell until you've been in it. You come out and look at it. If you don't like it, we don't have to take it." "All right, I'll be out there right now." So he came out, he walked in the front door, he looked at the living room right there, and he saw the steps going upstairs, and he looked at the steps going down to the basement. He said, "I could live here." I said, "If you want to live with me, you will live here, because this is where I'm going to live." Well, he wanted to live with me, so we bought it and moved into it, and it has been absolutely heavenly. But next door to it was an old Baptist church, and it
Okay.
hadn't been used as a church for years, and it finally came up for sale. So I made a bid on it and called my husband and said, "I bought that church. How much did you pay for it?" I said, "Well," and I told him, he said, "Oh," he was just furious once again. But he went to the banker, and the banker said, "Well, we'll make a part of this a contribution to the church, and the rest will be the price of the church. But the rest of it will be a contribution to the church that will be income tax deductible." So we bought this church. We moved, and we had already moved there, and had been there several years. My daughter, their bedroom, the girls' room, was faced the church.
Mhm.
And my daughter would come downstairs in the morning and say, "Those people in that church have got to stop looking at me and talking to me through the windows." I said, "Really?" She said, "Mom, they're in there." I said, "Sarah, if you say they're there, they're there." She said, "They're there, Mom, and I'm tired of it." I said, "Well, there's nothing I can do." So she'd give him the middle finger. I said, "Sarah, that's not a good idea. If they're there, they will retaliate. I'd appreciate it if you didn't that. Mom, you don't." I believe you. So one day we had a meeting in that building after we'd restored it,
Mhm.
and a man was sitting at the head of the table doing his thing, and my other daughter took a picture. And she said, "Mom, you got to see this." She showed me the picture. And between the man who's doing the speech and me, and I'm working in the kitchen, here is this woman in a long blue fancy dress walking behind that man. Now, I have that picture. If you think I'm lying about that, I'll send you a copy of that picture. It is absolutely fantastic.
Please do.
So when people talk to me about death, I say, "Don't worry about death. I don't believe in death. I think we don't go to heaven." That picture of Jesus looking at heaven, that's not, he knows, and I know that that's not where it is. It's right here. You
Mhm.
turn a corner into that other dimension. If we could see, it's like seeing through a glass darkly. And when you
Right.
can see what's there, then you don't have to worry about dying anymore because you aren't going to die. You're going to go into another dimension. That's where my father, my son, and my husband are. There's not a doubt in my mind of what they're there. Because I've seen this woman. Her name is Catherine Markham. Because several years ago, a man called me who used to live in Osage and said, I understand you bought the borough church. I said, yes. He said, there's a cemetery out behind that building. I said, well, I know there is, but somebody took down all the gravestones and used it to and plowed over it and then fed hogs in that area. He said, well, those spirits are still there. I said, I'm sure they are, but I don't know how to talk to them. He said, well, take out your divining rods. And I said, sure, I've got divine. He said, don't you have divining rods? I said, no, I don't have divining rods. He said, well, make some. So he told me how to make divining rods. So I made some divining rods. He said, now you go out there and walk between those two trees that are close together. Hold those rods out right in front of you, straight in front of you. And when they cross, you're over a grave. I said, yeah, I'll do that. So I made some divining rods and I went out between the two trees and I started walk between them with my divining rods out in front of me. And all of a sudden the damn things crossed.